Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another day in my life / what I eat in a day. Now I'm super excited to share today's video because you guys know I'm obsessed with food and cooking, and all of the recipes that I'm making today are things that I have been wanting to make for a minute, and they all turned out delicious, spoiler alert. So like I said, I'm very excited to share. I'm gonna be making a broccoli and cheddar egg bake, a homemade lasagna with sourdough noodles, homemade pasta sauce, and a really delicious cheese sauce. We also went strawberry picking for the first time this season, and we decided to turn our strawberries into strawberries and cream popsicles. I also made the viral green goddess dip, as well as some homemade corn and sourdough tortilla chips. So, and I also sat down to talk with you guys just about like diet and my current eating routine a little more. Before we hop right in, I want to give a special thank you and a shout out to all of my patrons, to everyone that has gone over and checked out my exclusive content on Patreon. Patreon is definitely where you're going to hear my hot takes, my more personal content. Recently, I talked about kind of where I am currently in my faith journey, but I've also talked about all kinds of other things, including feminism. I recently uploaded a video called "It's Not About the Weapon and I Don't Trust the News." So I'm going to go ahead and leave that link down below. And with all of that being said, let's hop right in. All right, so I started off by chopping up all of my broccoli into broccoli florets. I did save the broccoli stems, by the way, because I want to do a recipe with those sometime soon, but I didn't do that today. Then I took these Adele chicken and apple smoked chicken sausage links that I got from Costco, and I threw some butter in a pan, and then I threw in my broccoli and my sausage that I had chopped up into kind of coin-sized bites, and then I cut those in half as well. I also ended up throwing a little bit of water in the pan because I decided I wanted a little bit of steam while I was cooking, and I just let everything cook up. Then I threw in about half of a teaspoon-ish of garlic powder. I also added about half of a teaspoon-ish of onion powder, and then I put in some salt. And I recently picked up this Redmond's real salt because I've heard a lot of people talk about it and how amazingly delicious and nutritious it is. So I threw that on the mix as well and just sauteed everything up. Then while that was cooking, I threw 8 eggs into a bowl and I whisked all of my eggs together. Then I grated a block of cheddar cheese. Then I had ground up some oats to make oat flour, and I threw that in the mix, as well as some baking powder and all of my shredded cheddar cheese. And then I also threw in my broccoli and chicken sausage mix, and I stirred that all together. By the way, I want to just throw out there that all of the recipes that I'm making today were inspired from Pinterest. So in general, I know I've said this before, but if you're ever like, where does she get her inspiration? It's Pinterest. So then I baked my egg bake on 350 for, I want to say, about 30 minutes until the center had set up. And oh my gosh, guys, this was so good. Actually, we ate this for meals like 3 days in a row. So now fast forward to dinner. I wanted to make lasagna with sourdough noodles. Dan has kind of been on the fence about like my noodle choices for lasagna lately. So I decided to make it from scratch. And as you can see, it's just a few simple ingredients of flour, eggs, olive oil, salt, and starter. And I did just like a basic mix. And then I threw the dough onto my stand mixer and allowed that to mix for a few minutes till everything came together. Then I covered my lasagna noodles with a wet towel and I put it in the fridge to ferment for, I think, a couple hours, because I'm pretty sure I started these noodles in the early afternoon. By the way, on this day, I tried the Synergy Raw Kombucha in Watermelon Wonder, and I just want to throw out there that this flavor is amazing. So I picked up this grass-fed ground beef from Fred Meyer, and then I chopped up my mushrooms and my white onions, and once I had cooked up my ground beef, I threw my veggies into the mix. Then I added in some crushed fresh garlic. Next up, I added in some tomato paste. So as you can see, I'm pouring tomato sauce in from the blender because I actually made my sauce from scratch. And it was really basic, but I forgot to get a shot of it. It was pretty much just tomatoes with tomato paste and herbs and a little sugar and salt. And so I poured that in. Then I poured in some milk because I didn't have cream, and I let everything kind of reduce. I threw in some more herbs into the mix. I believe some thyme and Italian seasoning, some salt, and just let everything simmer for a little bit. Then it was time to make the cheese sauce. So I started off by making a roux, which was just a bunch of butter, I think like 4 tablespoons. And then I threw in some flour, and then I whisked in some milk. Now, making roux always makes me nervous because it's so clumpy at first, for me at least. But then after a little while of really trying to separate everything with my spatula and mix it up, it starts to thicken, as you can see, and really becomes this like almost like paste or like a cheese sauce like we're going for. Then I put 3 different kinds of cheese in here. It was Parmesan, Gruyere, I always have a hard time saying that, and mozzarella. And then I let that heat up on the stove. And once it was melted, by the way, I removed it from the heat. And then Dan helped me by rolling out my lasagna noodles. You guys know that Dan really enjoys cooking as well, so it's always nice to have a sous chef, although sometimes I'm his sous chef, depending on what we're making. So he flattened out these noodles and then put a little flour between each layer so he could make them ahead of time and they wouldn't stick. And once again, spoiler alert, this was amazing. And maybe it's because I didn't make the noodles. That's probably definitely what it was. But this whole process was much easier than I expected. And as you can see, I just layered everything up with noodles and my meat sauce, my cheese sauce, and fresh spinach. And I just built all my layers. Once it was completely built, I covered it in some foil and I threw it in the oven to bake up. And oh my goodness, guys, this was so good. Like I've always made a good lasagna, but I'm gonna pretty much say hands down, this is the best lasagna I've ever made. The noodles were amazing. The cheese sauce was so decadent, and it was just a super simple but delicious recipe. And I will link it in the info box down below. So guys, something that I love about summer, and specifically about being in the Pacific Northwest, are all of the farms, the U-pick farms. And so on this day, we went to a strawberry field to pick some strawberries. Now, side note, before anyone asks, Logie at this point had some scratches on his face because he had a spill in the backyard. So don't worry, but you're also gonna see strawberry all over his face, which they said at the front was fine. They're like, it's fine, he can eat as you go. So we just made our way through the whole field and picked a bunch of different kinds of strawberries, because something that I've noticed with a lot of these U-pick farms is that they have multiple varieties of the berries. And of course I had to take a pause to get a kiss on the cheek. Is there anything better? It was so fun, so delicious, and just absolutely a beautiful day out. These are the moments I think about in the dead of winter when I'm cold, how the seasons are gonna change again, and just these beautiful moments that we get in summer up here. So we decided that we wanted to turn our strawberries into strawberries and cream popsicles. So I bought these Zipsicle ice pop molds like a couple of years ago, and I had just never used them yet. So I was very excited to pull these out of my drawer and make our popsicles. These are all of the ingredients, by the way, that I used. Once again, this was inspired by a Pinterest recipe. I always alter things a little bit based on what I have or preference, but you know, the gist was Pinterest. So like I said, I rinsed off all my strawberries, cut off all of the stems. Then I threw them all in a blender and I added all of my ingredients, which was a little bit of milk. By the way, this was a great way to use our raw milk because I don't always like do the greatest job at drinking our raw milk. I usually have to add it to something. Then I put in a little bit of organic raw cane sugar. I also put in a little bit of organic maple syrup. And then I threw in a splash of vanilla as well because why not? And then I blended that up. Then we poured our strawberry filling into the Zipsicles through a little funnel that I've had for a while. All right, so this is something that I had wanted to do for a while, and that was make my own chips. Now, I will also give a spoiler alert on this. This did not turn out the greatest, but they totally turned out to be edible. And these are sourdough corn tortilla chips, so it's a combo of the both. But the way they turned out was actually more like pita chips. We definitely did them a little too thick, but every recipe obviously is a learning process, and figuring out how to roll them out was an ordeal, as you will see. But while my little blocks of dough fermented in the fridge, I cut up some cabbage and cucumbers into tiny little bits because I wanted to make this green goddess dip to go with my chips. So as you can see, I also picked a bunch of chives from my garden. I love fresh chives, and I diced those up as well to add into the mix. Once my dough had fermented in the fridge, we knew we needed to roll the dough out thin, and that's part of why our chips turned out a little bit thick, because we definitely didn't roll them thin enough. But like I said, it took a little bit of getting used to, and we found that rolling out the dough with parchment paper on the top and the bottom was the easiest way to do it and to get it a little thinner. So as you can see, then I brushed the dough with olive oil, put a little salt on, and then cut my dough into chip shapes. By the way, at this point, I had started to make the dressing for the Green Goddess salad, which was a wide array of ingredients, including but not limited to spinach, basil, garlic, shallot, olive oil, I believe lemon juice, a de-seeded jalapeno pepper, and salt, and also I believe some red chili pepper flakes. Oh yes, and also some nutritional yeast powder. And once that was completed, I poured that all over the salad and massaged the salad well to distribute all of the dressing into all the little bits. Now, I keep calling this a salad and then I call it a dip. That's because it's kind of either or. I have now eaten it both ways, just by itself with a fork and with the crackers. And Dan prefers it with the crackers, but it's just really delicious and a very unique flavor. By the way, we also made tacos on this night, and yes, those are homemade tortillas and homemade guac and homemade pico de gallo. Dan picked up rockfish from Costco, and it was so delicious. By the way, there are my chips. As you can see, they kind of have a pita chip look. Yeah, we need to roll them thinner next time. Hi guys, so I am currently sitting in my backyard, as you could tell, and I wanted to bebop into this video to talk today a little bit about my current diet, I guess you could say. So I thought that I had kind of talked about my diet on here quite a bit, but then again, I talk so much on the internet, sometimes I lose track, but I've been noticing that I've still been getting questions kind of regularly about my diet. And so I felt like it would be appropriate to kind of hop in here or bebop in here for a second and just give a quick little explanation, since so much of this video on this day is food. So basically, to summarize, I'll just give like the short encapsulation. I consider myself kind of to be like an intuitive eater, like this is a good way to put it, an informed intuitive eater. And what I mean by that, and this is kind of like something that applies to a lot of areas of my life, I really like researching things. I really like hearing people's perspectives on diet and nutrition. But then when it comes down to it, I pretty much just follow my gut and do whatever feels right. And I haven't always been that way, because I do realize in some ways that can sound a little bit like, well, what's the point then? Like, whatever. And like, how do you know if you're having success with things? And I think what has actually led me to this point is because I have been the opposite in the past before. I have been on a few different kinds of like diets, in a way that was like very strict, really adhered to the guidelines. And I've mentioned this before, when I say diet, I was only on diets for things like regarding weight loss back when I was really in high school and like late teens, early 20s-ish. And I've said this before, I really feel like through that experience, like God freed me from a like grip that food had on me and the way that I saw food in regards to like body size or, you know, fitness and weight and all of that. And I feel like it really became a refocus on health. Now, I heard someone recently the other day say that sometimes people that are food obsessed will wear the mask of health. And I totally can see that, but I actually like, or not food obsessed, people that have like food, just issues, right? Like not a healthy relationship, they'll wear it behind the mask, or they'll have the mask of health on, and that's kind of how they'll operate. But I really do feel like I operate from that place genuinely. And I also am totally fine with, like, I don't like this phrase, but like cheating, depending on where my life is at that moment, whether family's in town or something is happening with friends. But I also think that a lot of us lie to ourselves in terms of like how healthy we're actually eating. So as a generalization, I do try to eat healthfully, and then, like I said, from a place of like intuitiveness. So that doesn't mean that like, oh, I want to go get ice cream from McDonald's, so I'm just going to go get ice cream. Although I have done that, but I haven't done that in a really long time. But what I might do from there is like reach for a healthier, cleaner ice cream because I'm craving ice cream. So I do pay attention to my cravings. And if you're kind of like, you know, wondering what I've been informed by and the lens that I'm like kind of doing the intuitive eating through, or like what some of that information that I deem to be valuable or true at this point, over the last couple of years, I have kind of dug more into Weston A. Price and Nourishing Traditions. And Weston A. Price was actually a dentist in the early 1900s, I believe, that like traveled the world and just took note of everything he was seeing and finding, and people's health and people's jaw development and their teeth and just their skeletal structure in general. And so it's a very they would call it like ancestral way of eating. So obviously we're not eating things that are, or obviously if you're, you know, subscribing to that, it's not necessarily so many processed or packaged things. It's kind of in a similar vein as like keto, paleo type stuff. But Weston A. Price is into something that I'm really into, and that is sourdough. Now, that's not necessarily something for everyone because some people still have a problem with grains or with wheat in particular. But you guys know I really do love bread. And I just want to throw out there, I know I have certain health issues I've struggled with. I have I've done it. I have been gluten-free before in my life, and really tried to keep carbs low at another point in my life, and that did not resonate with my body at all. In fact, in some ways I felt worse than ever, even when I drug it out, because I know there can be like detox periods or adjustment periods, or, you know, some people, you're switching to ketosis, and I've just never felt good low carb. And I feel like I like grains, like I like sourdough. And so that's very much a Weston A. Price thing as well, because apparently like sourdough is more of like the traditional way of handling grains and making bread, right? Because commercial yeast wasn't invented until like the last 100 years or something like that. So prior to that, people were capturing wild yeast through a starter and making sourdough, which, by the way, I'll take this time to plug my sourdough playlist down below. I've made a video talking all about starter and what it is, and now the sun is poking through these trees and going in my eye, that's annoying. And I also made a video talking about my favorite, like, fail-proof, insanely easy sourdough bread recipe. And literally, I love it because that video just like slowly keeps acquiring comments for people that are like coming back later. They're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. You were right. This is so easy and so delicious. So yeah, so there's that. So, that being said, you're not going to see anything like, I don't know, I'm not making bone broth in this video, like some of the traditional Weston A. Price things, but I just felt like this was an appropriate time to answer that question. And as you will see, like, I tend to cook a lot from like, what am I in the mood for? What am I craving? And I'm constantly trying to learn how to bring my food back more to like, I don't know, just having more control over it, in the sense of like not depending on someone else to make everything. So like the bread, for example. One thing that I really want to learn here in my near future, hopefully, is how to make mozzarella and butter. And I've seen all these things online, but I haven't actually made them. So I've watched videos, I haven't made them. So yogurt, my mom is actually working with me right now because it feels scary, but to try to learn how to do yogurt, because I'm hoping to actually get potentially in like a raw milk local co-op. We'll see. But yeah, that's kind of, I guess, just what I wanted to put out there. Like I said, I thought I had talked about this before, but I'm continually getting questions. So I just wanted to address that. West Today Price, I will say another thing, is very focused on animal products and animal fats and just fat in general, like good fats, like olive oil and avocado, but definitely animal products. And you guys know I was a vegan for a very little bit. I felt so bad on that. It didn't take long for me to figure out like, oh, I can't do the vegan thing. But I was vegetarian for a long time. I always like throw out these numbers and I can't ever remember. It's like, was it 5 years, 6 years, 7 years? I don't remember. It was a minute though. And I've definitely, by the way, sorry if you can hear everyone doing their lawn work in the background. I guess this is the perils of recording outside. Logan and I are actually getting ready to go visit a friend, and he's inside with Dan right now, and I just wanted to come out here and, you know, film where I could talk. Anyways, I've said this before, but I feel like since introducing animal products into my diet in general with the last couple of years in a more purposeful way, I feel like I've gotten a lot stronger. My mother-in-law and I were talking about that when she was in town. She was just like, Nikki, it is noticeable how much stronger you are now. So I find that very interesting too. Now, that being said, I'm gonna hop into today's video, or wherever this is in the video, I'm not sure, but all of this food was so good, and I hope that you enjoyed it, and I'm really hoping to experiment with a bunch more recipes soon because I love cooking. You guys know that. With all that being said, I will, God willing, see you guys back here soon with another new video. And if you are a patron, you can go check out my Patreon now because I have a new Patreon video up. If you didn't know that, that's kind of been my goal, is to get a new Patreon video up every time I upload a YouTube video. So that's it, guys. Bye. If you liked this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. It really helps to support my channel and lets me know, obviously, what you guys like seeing. And once again, thank you to all of my patrons. I appreciate you guys. God willing, I'll see you guys back here soon. Bye.